Hello, this video will serve as an introduction to week 5 and chapter 2. So, yep, hopefully your chapter 1 draft is complete and in a good place. Reminder, you should be, as you're going, based on my feedback, making updates to the previous sections and chapters as you're going. You will want to do that. I suggest you do that in yellow highlight. Do that however what system works best for you. Just let me know what your system is, because at the end of the course, when you submit your final draft to me of the first 3 chapters as the key assessment for this course, I will be looking for how you have modified your dissertation throughout the semester. It's a part of the learning experience. As I mentioned, it is truly a living document until your modifications for your dissertation defense are done. Okay, chapter 2, all about the review of the literature. So chapter 1, you introduced us to your topic. You told us about your purpose statement, your problem of practice, your context, your organizational profile, your research questions, your definitions, and your researcher positionality. Okay, so we have the stages set. Now we are grounding your topic and your problem of practice in the literature. You are now sharing with us what research has already been done on your topic and how you are going to add to that research. Okay. In the previous section, when you're talking about introducing your topic, you might have said what's currently going on with your topic, right? And your problem of practice, but that was current. Like that was maybe not necessarily even research, right? That's just talking about an introduction to the topic. Now, whatever you reference in chapter 2, it is research that has already been conducted on your topic. You are not describing your topic anymore. We are specifically looking at research that has been conducted on your topic. So the 25 articles that you select minimum for your literature review need to actually be research-based. How do you know they're research-based? Well, number one, in your search criteria, you should be selecting peer-reviewed and full-text PDF so you can see that, right? You must have a full-text PDF for all 25, and more. Whatever articles you reference in your dissertation, you should have the full-text PDF. I mentioned this before. Part of the reason that you need to have that is the more often we, how do we say this? Our current context in higher ed, as in all of education, is not always funded where we need it to be. And research sometimes is out there and then it just disappears based on contextual factors. So you might find an article that you are basing a lot of your literature review or your significance or your definitions, etc., on, and one day it's there and one day it's gone. That's the reality of what we're living in right now. If you cite something, you have to have the full text PDF to support what you're citing so that you can go back and reference it if anybody ever asks you for it. Your committee members, or if you publish it, a journal, you have to have the original source. So please do not cite anything in your dissertation that you do not have the original source for, a PDF source. You are going to be synthesizing, we'll talk about that in a minute, those 25 peer-reviewed articles. You can tell from the breakdown on the left that you have multiple weeks to do this. I kind of broke it down for you. This week, we're going to be focusing on doing the literature search itself and how you write the overview of how you did your literature search to find those 25 or so articles. Make sure you do the readings as usual prior to trying to, do the search, etc. If you've already done the search and you found those, hopefully you journaled through some of those searches and you remember the search terms you use and things like that. We'll go through that in just a minute. But this week we're going to be focusing solely on conducting the literature search. Even if you've already done it, you have 25 articles, you really should return to it. Just make sure there's nothing more new that came out. since you conducted your last literature search. And that will be true all the way again until you publish your, you're doing your modifications and they're done for your final dissertation defense in your last course. You will be adding to your literature because new literature could potentially come out. And some of you who study things like AI, for example, there is so much literature coming out all the time. You are definitely going to need to update your topics. Some of you who have more foundational topics, that might not be true as much, that you need to update it. So what specifically are you working on this week in writing? Again, you're going to be working in your dissertation template. The first thing you're going to do, step one for this week, is conducting your literature search. The second thing is writing the overview to your literature review. When you're conducting your search, please make sure you're journaling, how you're conducting that search in the spirit of replicability. So somebody should be able to read the overview you provide in chapter 2 and find the same articles that you found. Okay. So really be thinking about, these are the search terms I used. These are the dates I did the searches as best as you can. These are the databases I used. These are the inclusion exclusion criteria I used. For example, when I say that, when you go check those boxes for advanced search, like full text PDF, or maybe you have also, I would recommend peer reviewed, but maybe also if maybe if you're, for example, using AI, we recommend that your research is within the last 5 years. However, some of you are doing more foundational topics and studies, might be older. That's okay too. If you're using AI, you might actually need to have your last 25 within the last 3 years, because so much is, come up with AI in the last 2 to 3 years. It's new. 5 years isn't even going to cut it for you, right? It's going to be researched in the last 2 to 3 years. So this really varies, and your search criteria really varies depending on your topic. I know some people don't like to include international studies. I'm not one of those people, but some people, obviously my instrument that I use for my burnout work is international. It's from Copenhagen, Denmark. But some people, they prefer stuff that's from the US, and whatever you do to find the literature that you have, jot it down, make sure you have kind of a paragraph describing how you conducted that search. And you're taking notes about that so you can write it up for your overview. Another thing, as I already mentioned, you have to have a full text PDF for everything in your literature review. So as part of this week's assignment, you are going to create a Google Drive folder, or you can use SharePoint if you want. But you need a folder with a minimum of 25 articles in there. Okay. And these should be peer-reviewed, research-based. How do you know these are research-based again? You can usually tell right from the abstract. It'll say the purpose of the study was, it will say the participants were, the data collected was, the analysis was this, the theoretical framework was that, the findings were, these are terms. If you're looking at your 25 articles, that should be included. Things that cannot be included are like opinion pieces, or kind of book reviews, things like that. Those are not included. This is original research conducted by the authors of the article. If you have any questions about an article on that, and you're wavering, feel free to send it to me and tell me your thoughts. So you'll have this link to a Google Drive folder. Make sure your folder, by the way, is shareable, or SharePoint, so you can share that with me. Because that's one thing you'll want to include, that at the beginning of your chapter 2 in that template. So it'll have the template, it'll say chapter 2. Right after chapter 2, just copy and paste that link. We won't include that in the final version of your dissertation. But for me, for the purpose of this course, I'm going to keep coming back to that. I might provide you with, if I have a question about one of the articles you're synthesizing in the upcoming weeks, I will go back to this folder and make sure, it is in fact research-based, or if I have any questions, I will be using that folder. So please make sure that link is in there for chapter 2. Then again, you're going to be writing that overview. And that overview needs to include, those key pieces about how you conducted it. Okay. And this just helps, with replicability, like I said, but credibility too. And then, for chapter 2, a roadmap of the chapter when you're in your overview. So link, paragraph describing, a link to your folder with the 25 articles, then a paragraph describing exactly how you conducted your literature search, and then a brief introduction to the chapter and how it's going to be organized. Now, talking about organization of your chapters. This is going to look different, and you've learned about, in Dr. Bino's classes, you've learned about different ways you can organize your literature review, thematic, historical, chronological, etc. This is going to, again, look different for all of you. Things to think about how you might organize it are by research question. Now that you have your research question, maybe constructs within those research questions. Those are just some of the more common ways to organize it, but it does need to be organized. You need to explain to us how it's organized and why. So that's what you will be doing for week 5. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at nschilling@sbu.edu. Thanks.